GM Fox fam, go ahead and kick Lo-Fi off here real quick. Welcome to the operations office hours for, was it July 7th today? I don't have an agenda that's been prepared. There's been kind of a lot going on in leadership and in governance, and things like that have really distracted a lot of focus. So I figured I'd do a little bit more of a freestyle for operations office hours today. I do know I wanted to talk a little bit about some things that we've implemented a couple weeks ago in terms of testing changes. Then I want to talk a little bit about the governance proposal that I got posted up in the forum yesterday. I know we'll have governance call later, and I'll be talking there briefly as well. But I'm happy to answer any questions about that if they come up, so we can do that too. But yeah, briefly just chatting about testing changes that have happened recently. Operations has two different pathways to testing our product. One of those is deployment testing, when we test very specific features that have changed due to PRs that are going out for fixes to bugs or for new additions. We used to do full product suite tests during these deployments because you never knew if touching code in one end was going to affect features at the other end of the house. And this was kind of a practice that had been built based on us falling into these pitfalls and holes at old centralized ShapeShift. I was very hesitant to stop this form of testing. It was something that I spent many emotional late nights up fighting fires and just due to things that we could have prevented. One of the things that has been eye-opening in our DAO experience and new to me in coming to open source software is that, yes, we do have third-party dependencies. Yes, there are things that will break unexpectedly, but there's a lot more trust that's being able to be instilled inside the dependency of our product suite and the dependency of the different features that we've built. We're now able to isolate our testing and remove a lot of the checklists and a lot of the things that actually cost money for us to test from each deployment testing. So now, if there's not anything that affects Swapper, which is our abstraction layer for trading, then we don't test trades. And we had to have some trial and error with seeing if we could step away a little bit from testing those things and be sure that, yep, even though we didn't test it and we did a deploy, the next time we had to test Swapper was just fine because no one touched it. So this has allowed us to really roll back on what we're doing redundant spends on, what we're spending lots of gas on. And in turn, the initial hope was that we would pass all of these edge cases, all of the full product testing to what we call regression testing, which is testing isolated from future deployments. It's just us looking at the entire product suite as is. Can we find any bugs? Can we click on all the buttons? Can we plug in all of the wallets, do all of the things, say the things they're supposed to at the times they're supposed to? And that, with our product suite, with our wallets, with our assets, with our extraction layers, is too big to be taken on as one task. And so we've broken that down into individual tasks of once a day, we're looking at just Portis wallet, once a day we're looking at a full staking flow. And those are spread out across one a day, per month. And we've been able to stretch that out into more like a cleaning checklist or something like that, maybe a deep clean list. And so the net that we've gone from our testing is continually getting wider and wider, and we haven't seen an exponential growth in bugs not being caught or in issues being reported or in services going down. So we now have those two split and have really decreased the amount of testing that we're doing on release testing. We at first really increased our testing on regression testing. We wanted to make sure that if we were loosening the net on release tests, that nothing would get caught over there. And again, that was my kind of centralized, I don't want to get caught with my pants down because we thumbs up something and we didn't check that little edge case and all of a sudden it broke and people couldn't access their funds. And we've been able to slowly kind of continually backtrack our stance of requirements and what this regression testing does. And we've now gotten to the point that we used to be able to measure how much we were spending per request, per kind of week. We've got kind of a measurement of how much it costs us per a regression test or a deployment test. And we've now decided we really want to hone in on that specifically to the test, to the day. And so we've set up some new rules. And so now, even though we've got those tests for regression of those edge cases set to once a month, we now have a GWE measurement that we're measuring the average gas GWE spend on the whole week, and then looking out at the mempool. And if it is higher in GWE than the average on the week, then we pause that regression test and we come back to it the next time we're able to, or we continue to check in with the network to make sure that we're only testing these at opportune times in the network. We have coverage kind of before Mountain Standard Time starts at 9 and well after 5 p.m. because we have two contributors who start later in their own days on the other side of the world, in the Philippines and in Australia. So we have good coverage there. That's my thoughts on regression testing and where we've got going on there. We will have more reports at the next all thoughts about how much we've actually saved in this. And we'll also kind of report the bad side of that if there were any prod issues, increased issues of reports of broken things from us not testing things during high network times. And in hopes we'll rediscover the floor of how much it actually, the bare minimum for testing requires here in the DAO. So yeah, that's my testing talk. It doesn't look like anyone has any questions on the stage. So one of the things I guess that we've already been made aware of from this and from our posture changing is that we can really decrease the spend of our monthly test fund allocation. And our attempt for our next workstream renewal is going to actually be cutting that directly in half. So we'll go from our monthly spend of $20,000 in test funds to $10,000 in test funds. So there's not like a full budget that has been released because we're still working on that internally with ops for what our renewal will look like, but I can confirm there at least that the biggest cut in line item is 10K off of our test funds that we're very confident we'll be able to make with these new changes in testing. Guess we can talk about the proposal now. I posted in the forum a kind of lengthy post with some links called Sunsetting the Support Workstream Proposal. And it is a proposal in attempts to make a more dramatic and lasting change to our monthly stable spend. And it is a refocusing of the tasks and responsibilities of the support workstream to rediscover their kind of minimum viable floor of need with the DAO right now, and a proposal that the most optimum and cheapest way to do that would be to provide all of those services as a task, one of many that's done inside operations. The proposal itself has kind of some details of an analysis of the decline in ticket flow. We've definitely seen a major decline in users reaching out to us and using our support stuff, both from kind of the bear market, but also from us no longer providing support to all of the same product features in terms of wallets and hardware devices and website services. So there's definitely been both a decline in interest as well as a decline in services offering there that has maybe not matched along the alignment of personnel that we've got currently manning there. There's some spreadsheets to measure differences in budget, how much this could potentially save. Yeah, I don't want to read it for what it is. It's definitely something that's better to be communicated with in the forum than for me to just dictate it here. There's a Stanson presentation of Gitbook. It's similar to Zendesk in that it's a help desk offering, but different in the fact that one, ShapeShift's already currently using it, and it hosts our docs our docs repo rather that is in GitHub. It reads off of that, and this would be the service that we would be able to continue to provide the help desk that is currently in Zendesk, but would also be locally stored inside our docs repo, able to be available to all developers that are plugging and playing with our GitHub, and it would be there locally for anyone who is running our stuff as well. So kind of like a more centralized, more maintained and owned version of a help desk. There was some comments about Zendesk being good for SEO. I'm not 100% in the know on the specifics of how we use Zendesk's SEO, if there are ways we could optimize that more efficiently, or if Gitbook could check the same boxes. I definitely provided this alternative as something that was more so trying to provide the UI UX content at a lower price and in a way that could be maintained by contributors at the DAO here, kind of regardless of key ownership. This is something that once it's transferred to Gitbook and in our docs repo, if it's decided that operations is no longer the managers of this and that engineering should own it and we should pare down to just one person manning it, that could easily be maintained via PRs and pushes and things like that, more so than any kind of admin management inside Zendesk. I will say though that Zendesk isn't like a hardcore sticking point we definitely need to not have it. There's a lot of flexibility in this proposal. It's definitely an attempt to rediscover true floor of need. So if Zendesk is really preferred by the community, if there's a lot of things that we're short-sighted in our narrow view of cost around this service, we're happy to assume what the community would like in continuing to present the help desk through Zendesk and maybe find ways in which we can optimize the cost as well as optimize the SEO if that was to be maintained. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what I'm. Oh, Mogi says waste ops for support office hours. Yeah, just talking about the proposal a little bit. We're definitely not digging into it too deep, but just wanting to talk a little bit. And thank you, Mogi, too, for asking the questions that you have. I know this is a strange experience for us to be using the forum and talking in the ways that we are. So I appreciate the respectful discourse about how we're able to do it. It's really cool that we can do these things kind of for us as a DAO and for the future of other DAO people, because we're running into problems that haven't been solved before and no one's got the direct answers. And we all really care about this DAO. You know, we all really care about financial sovereignty. We all really care about making this sort of tool easier and better and more accessible to the masses. So yeah, it gets kind of weird when we're talking about this in a bull market, and we know that that there's consequences to that. But yeah, you're always going to be my Nuggies homie for life, bro. Regardless of what happens in this proposal, you know, I'm hopeful that this is, if nothing else, a conversation starter to what the potential options for actually addressing our stablecoin spend are. there's lots of ways in which our DAO governance process and rules need to grow through edge cases, through conflict, through experiences that haven't been solved by DAOs before, or maybe have, that we need to learn from people before us or after us. So yeah, that's the real goal here is trying to save the DAO money and trying to figure out if we can stretch the runway long enough that we'll make it through the other end of this bear market. Yeah, I see Neverwise joined me on stage.
I did. I did. Sorry, not to
No,
take any shine away from what you were trying to express. I did want to add some additional context. Obviously, I've been a very large proponent of doing things effectively and efficiently throughout process and throughout the DAO itself, and looking to assist in those ventures going forward. And one thing that I definitely will say is that in line with a lot of what the DAO is trying to achieve with having outside contributors and having the ability of other people's input, as well as ability to pick up bounties and do things that could be contributing to the DAO. Gitbook looks like a very in line with that. I know you stated previously that that it doesn't have to be ops that does this at some point, but going forward. But it could be anyone that wants to create an article and submit it to our GitHub or even to Gitbook if we choose to continue to utilize the UI UX interface of Gitbook itself. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's just a markdown written article that can then be posted to our doc repo, like you said. And more so versus having like an engineer have to do that, it could be anyone that can basically formulate the article and submit that as a PR. So it opens up the door to many contributors possibly being able to do things for us in the future. And also another thing that I would say that in looking at other DAOs and looking at how other DAOs function, a lot of times it was very rare to come across a DAO that had Zendesk as a support system currently utilized. Maybe because DAOs are young and they haven't gotten to the point of where there was a need yet for that. But there was research done to look into the effect of what other DAOs were utilizing and how that was working for them. And I understand that, coming from an established corporation, and trying to decentralize, we had a level of support that was already established, whether it's white glove support or, a higher standard, because of the use case it was utilized before. We've now transitioned to this DAO environment, and looking at alternatives does make sense to be able to just figure out what works best in this environment versus just holding on to what worked for a different situation. Maybe it can be adapted. Obviously that's what we're looking to see. But I do want to say that it is a part of it that holding on to something just because it worked in the past um, doesn't always, shouldn't be what our standard is going forward. And I won't say this just because it's something to do with this right now in this situation. I've been saying that since I came into the DAO, you know, last August or whatever. I've said it from then and I'll continue to say it. People have to be willing to change. People have to be willing to look at alternatives. People have to be able to adapt. And if we want to stay in the mindset that, we did it this way and this is the only way we can do it, we can't change that. I think it's going to be a lot harder for the DAO going forward to be nimble, to be agile, to be able to adapt to, rapidly changing environments where we're a global community and we have global voices and we have a 24/7, on system almost versus the old system that was very localized as far as operating hours and dealing with globalization. Sorry, a localized workforce, or one that was very U.S. associated. And I think we just have to open our minds a little bit, and I hope that this conversations that we're having helps to push us that way, whether we go one way or another, whatever path we choose. I think that is, a more powerful asset from this, is that the conversations can be learned and achieved from this going forward.
I appreciate that. Never was. Yeah. These are difficult conversations to have in conflict. But they're going to be necessary unless we just want to pretend like everything's all right and Thelma and Louise straight off a cliff at the end of our runway. So I still have faith that we have a whole bunch of extremely passionate, intelligent, hardworking individuals here who care about a unified goal, and that we'll make it through it. And we are going to make it. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tight. But I think the DAO is going to make it. Fox Token's going to make it. Fox Chain's going to make it. App.shapeshift.com is going to make it. KeepKey's going to make it. And we're all going to make it. We just got to DAO it together. And we're going to struggle through some of the issues that DAOs haven't solved yet. How do we solve tragedy of the commons issues? How do we continue to stay lean? How do you be efficient in both bull and bear markets? How do you get the most out of your contributors? How do you do so in a meritocracy where everything is open and transparent and honest? How do we build checks and balances? There's so many questions here that we've just begun to answer, and some of the answers that we have are extremely sufficient and efficient and work really well. And some of them are getting us by. And sometimes getting us by is good enough to survive the next day in the bear market. And sometimes getting us by is something that we need to then docket for reprioritization to be addressed later. Sometimes we can get away with changing the brakes and not changing the air filter. Little things like that, and kick them on down the road until we can focus on them and they become the next highest priority. So, yeah, this is in closing on the statements around the proposal and stuff. I did a lot of soul searching around what I had available to me as an individual DAO contributor on ways that I could extend our runway. And to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my ability, to the best of the strengths that I had at operations, this is the one that I found that accomplishes that goal. Maybe tomorrow there will be different things. Maybe there's ways that this can be shaped to still be efficient and towards that goal, but meet in compromises in other ways. I really hope that the discussion can continue in the forums. I'll do a really truncated version of this a little bit later in governance. And it sounds like there's not much questions yet, and I don't see anyone raising their hand as well. So I'd love to continue the conversation though, and really appreciate all the feedback that I've gotten so far, because really just trying to figure out how we can do right by the DAO here as selflessly as possible. What up, Never Was? You got some more? You want to throw a button on there?
Nah, I just came back up just in case. I think you're getting ready to wrap it up, and I was just gonna thank you. I know that this is a different type of operations office hour, but being that it is around operations and we're trying to talk about how the operations of the DAO, this is definitely something that is top of mind for operations of what's happening in the DAO. And I know it seems very single-sided. I don't think that in any way it's intended to be like, we're trying to preach about one thing or another, but I do see, how it is relevant to what's happening right now in the DAO, and how we're trying to effectively make operations, not our team, not our work stream, but operations work more smoothly and effectively, and taking on our harder issues and doing so. Whether it works one way or another, at least we're going to put this burden on our shoulders and walk forward with it because it does seem that it falls in operations corner. We are here to see if we can make the DAO run effectively and operate in the best means it can.
Yep. Thank you for that. There's two quick comments on the stage I'll address real quick. I agree with you, Mogi. Zendesk, the $1,200 a month isn't necessarily the highest cost. I don't want that to be the final sticking point that this proposal is out to remove Zendesk. I think that if the community has strong sentiment that the spend is worth it for Zendesk, and I do agree there are some fucking dope ass hotkeys and macros and analytics inside Zendesk that are not available in any sort of open source Discord bots, and we would have to home roll some stuff to get 100% of what Zendesk has there. I'm just also not sure if the offerings that Zendesk has match the current need to the DAO in July of 2022. But yeah, super. You know that shit more than me now for sure. And there's ways that thing, like when you get Zendesk humming, you can close hundreds of tickets in a couple of clicks. And really, for a next bull market, if we find ourselves in one of those ticket piles like we did the last bull market, and we go from 80 tickets a day to 25,000 tickets over the weekend, there's no better answer to solving that than Zendesk, because of the way in which they've allow you to group things together and macro communicate things. Hunt has some comments in there about Boosted Fox. I love Boosted Fox in terms of a really great long-term buy-in strategy for contributors to help decrease the stable spend. I think we should continue that as much as possible, and we'll be bringing that to all of our team for our renewal as well, to try and see how tight and how thin we can do it to stay lean. I do think that there's a slight priority in my mind to a cost savings that decreases the stable spend and decreases the Fox spend monthly. I know that right now it seems like we have unlimited Fox and we can just push all of the debts from the stable over to the Fox. But I think that removing the debt altogether is just a slightly one up over that. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that at the end of the day, when we're able to see all the measurements, when we're able to put all of those in the group leadership DAO calc sheet for all of the boosted Fox across all of the DAO, I think that might be the biggest swing we've had at decreasing our spend. So far, though, I still feel like this proposal that I've got is turning out to be in the realm of the ballpark of that conversation as well. You know, I don't know the numbers, and I don't want to speak to say that it is bigger than that. And I know that MGG, you guys took so much in Boosted Fox early on as kind of the trailblazers of the fact that this could be efficient and work. So I know there's definitely a lot of realized savings that have already happened from that. So yeah, thanks for the conversations, guys. Thanks for letting me orate for a while. I really hope that we can continue the conversation about the proposal and about how we as a DAO are going to navigate this bear market successfully together in all of our future calls until we get on a little bit more stable ground. Yeah, so thank you all, Fox fam. A little bit of a shorter one today. We're always available in operations public chat, or if you just shout loud enough in general in all caps and GK is sleeping, we might find you too. So feel free to reach out. I look forward to seeing your guys' sentiment on the governance stuff that comes through, and I will see you later today in the governance call. Make it a good GM.